Among his illustrations of sea monsters are two facsimiles of which I provide on the next page. In Figure 12, a sea serpent is seen writhing in many coils on the surface of the water, holding in its mouth a sailor it has seized from the deck of a ship. The poor fellow is trying to grasp the ratlins of the shrouds, but is being dragged from his hold and lifted over the bulwarks by the monster. His companions, terrified, are trying to escape in various directions. One is climbing aloft by the stay, hoping to get out of reach, while two others are hurrying aft to seek shelter in a small castle or cabin projecting over the stern. I strongly believe this is a fallacious representation of an actual occurrence. Viewed with the benefit of modern knowledge, these old illustrations convey to a trained eye a meaning as clear as hieroglyphs to an Egyptologist. My interpretation is as follows. The crew of a ship witnessed the horrifying sight of a serpent-like form emerging from the sea, rising over the bulwarks, seizing one of their shipmates, and dragging him overboard and underwater. Stunned by the sudden disappearance of their comrade, and too frightened to react properly during the brief few seconds of the event, they naturally concluded it was a snake. It was likely a gigantic calamari, as we now know such creatures exist. Dead carcasses have been found in the region where the depicted event supposedly occurred. What was presumed to be the body of a serpent was actually one of the squid's arms. The two rows of suckers on it are represented in the illustration by the medial line along its length, intended to depict a dorsal fin, and the double row of transverse segments on either side. In Figure 13, an enormous lobster is shown similarly dragging a man overboard from a ship, seizing him by the arm with one of its great claws. The transition from the crude image of a lobster, with 8 minor claws and 2 larger ones, to that of a cuttlefish with 8 minor arms and 2 longer ones is not great. I believe this, too, is a pictorial misrepresentation of a calamari attack similar to the one previously described, possibly even another view of the same incident. The concept is that of a sea creature capable of suddenly grabbing a man. We must remember that the Norsemen's understanding of cuttlefish remained vague even 2 centuries after Olus Magnus. Anyone who has seen, as I frequently have at the Brighton Aquarium, and as they doubtless did while lobster catching, the aggressive manner in which a lobster brandishes, or even gnashes, its claws at an approaching hand, even when held above water, can easily imagine a group of fishermen discussing such a tragedy. They would likely disagree over the identity of the creature, some believing it to be a sea serpent, others insisting it could only have been a colossal lobster. In writing his History of Norway, Pontoppidan certainly had access to Olus Magnus' statements. But despite Magnus being an archbishop, Pontoppidan did not accept them with the naive faith often attributed to him. He quotes, and curiously misquotes, the Swedish prelate as describing a sea serpent when, in fact, he was likely referring, incorrectly, to a type of jellyfish or acolifi. Pontoppidan writes, I have never heard of this sort, and should hardly believe the good Olus if he did not say that he affirmed this from his own experience. The disproportion makes me think there must be some error of the press. He mixes truth and fable together according to the relations of others, but this was excusable in that dark age when that author wrote. Notwithstanding all this, we, in the present more enlightened age, are much obliged to him for his industry and judicious observations. Regarding the sea serpent, Pontoppidan continues, I questioned its existence myself until that suspicion was removed by full and sufficient evidence from credible and experienced fishermen and sailors in Norway, of whom there are hundreds, who can testify they have seen them annually. All these persons agree very well in the general description. Others, who admit they only know of it by report or by what their neighbors have told them, still recount the same details. In all my inquiry into these matters, I have hardly spoken with any intelligent person born in the district of Nordland who could not give a clear account and firm assurances of the existence of this creature. Some of our northern traders, who come here every year with their merchandise, consider it absurd when seriously asked whether such a creature exists. To them, it is as ridiculous as being asked whether there are such fish as eels or cod. The Bishop of Bergen did his best to separate fact from fiction, but he was not always successful. Many outlandish tales were brought to him, and some passed through his scrutiny despite his efforts. Among these are accounts of the sea serpent's spawning times, its dislike of certain scents, and so on. We must set aside these embellishments and focus on the actual eyewitness evidence he provides. His first witness is Captain Lawrence de Ferry of the Norwegian Navy and first pilot in Bergen. Initially skeptical of such creatures, Captain de Ferry offered this formal statement to the procurator of Bergen after a personal encounter. Mr. John Rietz. At the end of August 1746, while returning from Trondheim on a very calm and hot day, I intended to put in at Mold. When we were about 6 English miles from Mold, at a place called Julness, I was reading when I heard murmuring from the men at the oars. There were 8 of them, and noticed the helmsman steering away from land. I asked what was going on and was told there was a sea snake ahead. I ordered the helmsman to steer back toward the creature. Though the men were apprehensive, they obeyed. The sea snake passed by us, so we tacked the vessel to get closer. As it swam faster than we could row, I fired at it with a loaded gun. It immediately plunged underwater. We rowed to the spot where it submerged. The disturbance in the calm water made it easy to see, and lay still, waiting for it to resurface, but it did not. The water at the spot turned thick and red. Perhaps it was wounded, given our close range. The head, held about 2 feet above the surface, resembled that of a horse. It was grayish in color, with a large black mouth and black eyes. A long white mane extended from its neck to the water's surface. Besides the head and neck, we saw 7 or 8 thick coils of its body, about a fathom apart. I recounted this to a gentleman who requested an official record. 2 of my sailors, Nicholas Peterson Copper and Nicholas Nicholson Anglewigan, will testify under oath to all these facts. I respectfully request an attested copy of this declaration. I remain, sir, your obedient servant. The witnesses then took their corporal oaths and, with fingers raised as per law, confirmed every detail of the above account. A certified copy was issued to Procurator Rietz and verified by the recorder. The court affirmed this with official hand and seals. The figure of the sea serpent, figure 14, as given by Pontoppidan, was drawn under the supervision of a clergyman, Mr. Hans Strom, based on accounts from his neighbors, Messrs. Rietz and Tuxen of Huro. It matched in every detail the creature seen by Captain de Ferry and another later observed by Governor Benstrup. The supposed coils of the serpent's body resemble 8 porpoises swimming in line, a known behavior among smaller cetaceans. These creatures often travel in single file, their backs briefly breaking the surface to breathe through their blowholes. In such cases, they appear like a string of casks or buoys, sometimes stretching 60, 80, or even 100 yards. This visual matches Olus Magnus' long line of spherical convolutions, and also another account recorded by Pontoppidan. I have been informed, he writes, by some of our seamen that a cable would not be long enough to measure the length of some of them when they appear on the surface of the water in an even line. They say the round lumps or folds sometimes stretch as far as the eye can see. I admit that, if this is true, it is probably not a single snake, but 2 or more of these creatures lying in line that create this impression. In a footnote, he adds, if anyone asks how many folds may be counted on a sea snake, the answer is that the number varies with the creature's size. 25 is the highest number I find reliably reported. Adam Oliarius, in his Gottorp Museum, relates, a Swedish nobleman once told me that the burgomaster of Malmö, a very trustworthy man, said that while standing atop a very high hill,